everybody, and welcome back to Storyality. It's like Cliff's Notes for fighting games. This time we're looking at Tekken 2. If you'll remember, Tekken 1 ended with Kazuya Mishima throwing his father off a cliff and taking over his company, the Mishima Zaibatsu, as vengeance for his childhood when his father had thrown him off a cliff. And if that sentence sounded confusing, Tekken may not be the series for you. Again, I'd like to apologize in advance for how badly I'm going to butcher any of these names. It could get pretty ugly in here, folks. Now, it's implied that Kazuya was only able to beat his father Heihachi in the previous tournament because of some dark power, a power that's only grown stronger since. I'm going to go ahead and spoil the mystery for you a little here. Kazuya possesses what is called the Devil Gene. All we know for now is that it grants him great strength and power, and it also seems to be corrupting his soul, making him cold and evil. We will also learn that he did not inherit this gene from Heihachi, so logically it must come from his mother's side, but that's for later on. It's been 2 years since the end of the first Iron Fist, or Tekken, tournament. Under Kazuya's ruthless leadership, the Mishima Zaibatsu has grown stronger than ever before. But people are starting to notice that the CEO is just a tiny bit evil. Then, without warning, Kazuya announces that there will be a second Tekken tournament with a prize 1,000 times bigger than the first. If you'll remember, the prize of the first tournament was an absurd amount of money. So this is an even more absurd amount of money. And so our fighters gather for a new tournament. While Kazuya is the main villain of the game, the final fight is actually against Devil, which is Kazuya in full-blown Devil Gene mode. Even though it's the same character, he's often treated as a separate entity, and so that's how we'll address him. Let's start first with our returning fighters. Uncommon for a fighting game, at least in my experience, every fighter from the previous game will be showing up again in this one. First up is Heihachi Mishima, our original bad guy. I think nobody is surprised to learn that he also survived being dropped off a mountain and has spent the last 2 years training himself so that he could take back his company. What's interesting here is that Kazuya and Heihachi have basically swapped roles in the game, with Baby Flinger Heihachi now being our game's main protagonist and Kazuya the main villain. Our next fighter up is King, our luchador turned priest. While working in his orphanage, one of his children died, and King fled down the bottle. His friend Armor King was finally able to locate him in a bar and convince him to return to working at the orphanage. He also convinced his friend to train and enter the new tournament. King is now sober and ready to fight, so he can once again use the prize money to help his orphanage. Next up is Martial Law, our Bruce Lee tribute. Law is having a perfectly good time running his new dojo when suddenly a rival instructor starts beating up all of his students. Law learns the culprit is Baekdo-san, who is competing in the new Tekken tournament, so Law joins looking for revenge and to restore the reputation of his dojo. Next is Michelle Chang, our Kung Fu Native American. Michelle's mother has been kidnapped by Kazuya to force her to participate in the tournament. Why does he want her in the tournament? He's learned that the pendant she wears around her neck is the key to a great treasure, presumably the same treasure her father was killed for finding for Heihachi before the first tournament. Next is Nina Williams, one of our assassin sisters, and probably the more likable of the pair. I mean, they both kill people for a living, but if you have to pick a good sister, it would probably be Nina. Nina is once again hired to take down the head of Mishima Zaibatsu, so this time she's gunning for Kazuya, although she's also hoping for a chance to take out her sister. Next is Paul Phoenix, whose hair is slightly less outrageous this time, but whose story is largely unchanged, even though he was able to defeat a bear in hand-to-hand combat. In the last tournament, he did not win the combat overall. After months of working as a bouncer and a street fighter, he's entered the second Tekken tournament to prove to the world that he's the strongest fighter alive. Next is Jack 2, our Soviet robot pal who's fun to be with. Now, Jack is kind of an interesting character in the series. Every game features a new version of Jack. In many ways, he's considered a new character in each game, but for the purposes of my series here, we're going to go ahead and count him as a returning character. After all, he's still Jack. Jack 2 is an upgraded version of Jack who wants to save his creator from Kazuya, who is apparently just kidnapping everyone, so that hopefully his creator can teach him how to become more human. The last of our regular characters is Yoshimitsu, the Robin Hood ninja. Yoshimitsu has learned that Kazuya kidnapped a friend of his as well, a Dr. Boskanovich, and he enters the tournament to rescue Dr. Boskanovich. Now, I said that was the last of our regular characters, but I also said that all of our characters were returning. Am I a liar? No. Now let's get into one of my favorite elements of a fighting game, the unlockable characters. Like in the previous game, each character has its own unique sub-boss. Beating the game with the character unlocks their sub-boss as a playable character, and this time, all the sub-bosses get endings too. Beating the game with Nina will unlock her assassin sister, Anna Williams. Since Nina was hired to kill Kazuya, Anna gets herself a job as Kazuya's bodyguard. I didn't know you could hire an assassin to protect a life, but what do I know? Nina and Anna actually have a lot of things happen to them between this game and the next, but we'll cover that in the Tekken 3 review. Beating the game with King unlocks his frenemy, Armor King. Armor King's story is pretty much given to us in Kings. He's convinced his friend to clean up his act and join the second tournament, and Armor King decided to join alongside him. Beating the game with Michelle unlocks Genryu, our morally dubious sumo wrestler. Genryu, like Anna, has been hired as a bodyguard for Kazuya. He's being paid enough money to pay off his massive gambling debts. He's also hoping to use the new payroll to build his own sumo ring and impress Michelle, who he's developed a crush on after seeing her in action in the first tournament. Beating the game with Paul Phoenix unlocks Kuma, Heihachi's bear bodyguard. Remember that time Heihachi came across a bear cub in the woods and trained it in the arts of kung fu and then had it function as a bodyguard? Yeah, I love Tekken. Well, Paul beat Kuma in the first tournament, and Kuma took that rather personally. So after spending several years training with his master Heihachi, Kuma has joined the second tournament to get revenge on Paul Phoenix. Beating the game with Yoshimitsu unlocks Kunimitsu, our female ninja, and this is her last appearance in the series. Well, her last canonical appearance, but we'll cover that in a later video. After suffering an embarrassingly easy defeat in the first tournament, Kunimitsu learns that Yoshimitsu's sword is actually a legendary sword of great power, which we will probably address in the Soul Calibur series. It is capable of severing an opponent physically, mentally, and spiritually, so she joins the tournament in order to defeat him and get the sword. Beating the game with Heihachi unlocks his adopted son, Lee Chaolin. After Heihachi was defeated in the previous game, Lee served as Kazuya's glorified butler, his errand boy, running around and doing all sorts of things for him. But he also refused multiple offers from characters to help them overthrow Kazuya, apparently choosing loyalty to Kazuya over Heihachi. Beating the game with Jack 2 unlocks Prototype Jack, the original Russian powerhouse robot. This is his last canonical appearance as well. Prototype Jack was almost destroyed by Jack in the first tournament, but Kazuya was able to save the parts. Prototype Jack then spent the next 2 years whining and complaining that he wanted an upgraded body, so Dr. Boskanovich, the kidnapped scientist, was assigned to take care of it. The doctor gave Prototype Jack a new hat and sunglasses and convinced him that this meant he'd been given a complete overhaul. Prototype Jack then began insisting on better combat programming, which is when the doctor disconnected his voice box and entered him in the tournament. I kind of like that backstory, a whiny, complaining robot. Anyway, beating the game with Jun, who's one of our new characters we haven't gotten to yet, unlocks Wang Zhenrai. Wang was good friends with Heihachi's father. Having seen both Heihachi and Kazuya turn to evil, he's become convinced that the Mashima Zaibatsu needs to fall. After unlocking every sub-boss, beating the game with one of the sub-bosses will unlock Kazuya. While we already know his backstory, there is one important element to consider. Either during or leading up to this tournament, he has sex with Jun, the new fighter we haven't quite discussed yet, and gets her pregnant. This will matter quite a bit in the future. And now it's time to meet our new characters, and let's start with the one I've already mentioned a couple of times. Jun Kazama is an officer of the Wildlife Protection Agency, and it's her job to arrest Kazuya because in addition to all the kidnapping he's been doing, he's also smuggling endangered animals. But when she meets him, she can tell he's a deeply conflicted man trying to fight against his darker urges, and Jun wants to help him be a better man. Our next new fighter is Li Wulong. Li is a famous Hong Kong detective. Picture Jackie Chan in Rush Hour. Li's partner was killed in an airplane crash involving Bruce, who we'll get to next, so Li joins the tournament to get to Bruce and learn the truth behind his partner's death. After beating the game with Li, you unlock the new character, Bruce Irvin. Bruce is a kickboxing champion whose parents were murdered, because when you're named Bruce, your parents have to be murdered in front of you so that you're messed up mentally for life. When he was offered money to start throwing fights, he instead began killing his competition. This led to Li Wulong's police partner tracking Bruce to a plane, which then crashed. Bruce alone survived, but had lost his memory. When Kazuya's men found Bruce, Kazuya decided to hire him to enter the tournament on his behalf. Beating the game with martial law unlocks the new character, Baek Do-san. In a convoluted and unfortunate series of events in his childhood, Baek accidentally killed his father, a man he loved deeply. Baek grew up to be a champion martial artist, but then somebody came forward with evidence that he had killed his own father. To prevent the evidence from going public, Baek was blackmailed into beating up all of the students in martial law's dojo in an attempt to discredit martial law as a teacher. And now it's time to get our Tekken weird on. If, on the third stage of the game, you win the last round with 5% health or less, you unlock Roger and Alex. Roger and Alex are treated as different costumes for the same character by the game, so we're going to go ahead and discuss both of them together. Roger is a boxing kangaroo, and Alex is a boxing dinosaur. Both of them were created by manipulating DNA, courtesy of Dr. Boskanovich. Yes, Tekken has kung fu bears, boxing kangaroos, and boxing dinosaurs. I love this series. And our last character, if you beat the game with Kazuya, depending on how you kill the end boss, you'll unlock either Devil or Angel. Like Roger and Alex, these two are treated as palette swaps of each other. They represent Kazuya's innate good and evil warring over his soul. Now, since I didn't cover it last time, I should probably state here that a lot of Tekken character endings are just bizarre, but I think that's part of the game's charm. It's about a 50-50 chance that your character will have some deep, meaningful character development, or just a brief scene of something goofy happening. With that in mind, let's get to the endings. King's ending. Ashamed to return to his orphanage, he drops off some presents and leaves, but the children see him and rush after him, begging him to come back. Law's ending. Law and Paul Phoenix are practicing together, and Law ends up belly flopping during a kick. That's all we get, kids. Michelle's ending. During a moment of calm introspection, Michelle throws the pendant away so that nobody else will suffer because of this mysterious treasure, at least until the next game. Nina's ending. While visiting her father's grave, she's ambushed by Anna, and both of them decide to give each other a pass this time as they mourn the loss of their father. Paul's ending. While riding his motorcycle down the highway, Paul encounters a rock slide blocking his path, which he destroys in a single punch. Yoshimitsu's ending shows him rescuing his friend from an escaping helicopter in a move worthy of any action hero. It is both awesome and absurd. It is Tekken. Anna's ending shows her sneaking up on her sister in the shower and taking a picture. That's it. I mean, she's probably planning to blackmail her with it, but who knows. Armor King's ending shows that he's pretty heavily injured and he has a serious heart condition on top of it, but is going to continue to fight anyway. Genryu's ending simply shows him performing some sumo moves in a ring. Kuma's ending shows him going through a series of karate moves, the exact same karate moves that Paul went through in his Tekken 1 ending. Kunimitsu's ending shows her testing her new prize, Yoshimitsu's sword, by slicing a boulder in half. Farewell, Kunimitsu. We will miss you. Lee's ending shows him in charge of the Mishima Zaibatsu, with Heihachi and Kazuya in cages. Jack 2's ending. We see Jack 2 on a tropical island with a young girl named Jane. Apparently, at some point during the tournament, he had formed quite the relationship with Jane, and then a satellite in orbit fires a laser at him, disabling him. Prototype Jack's ending, which is probably canonical since this is the last time we see him, shows him activating some rocket boosters before they malfunction and blow him up. Wang's ending shows him spending some time at the tombstone of Heihachi's father and pouring out a drink for his dead homie. Kazuya's ending is hilarious. He's fighting Devil, and we'll ignore for the moment the fact that he is Devil and is about to lose when his father Heihachi leaps in and takes a blast meant to kill Kazuya. Kazuya is so touched by his father's concern for him that he picks him up and charges at Devil, using his father as a human shield, and then throwing his father's dead body at Devil, and then uppercutting Devil to death. Jun's ending basically shows her in the wilderness being loved and adored by animals like a Disney princess. Lei Wulong's ending simply shows him doing some target practice. Bruce's ending shows a young boy watching Bruce practice his moves. Bake's ending shows him reflecting on his father, and maybe finding solace for accidentally killing him. Roger and Alex's ending shows that they are both liberated by Jun and sent to live happily ever after in Australia. At one point, Alex finds some fossils, which makes him extremely happy, presumably because it makes him feel less alone in the world, even though he's the only boxing dinosaur in existence, and now he's forced to live in Australia. Angel's ending is really confusing. I think it's meant to represent Angel overcoming the system of violence that was created by the first Tekken tournament, and that Kazuya's soul is now at peace. Devil's ending simply shows Devil flying off into the night. And lastly, our canonical ending for the game, Heihachi's ending. Having won the tournament, Heihachi takes Kazuya's body in a helicopter and drops him into a volcano, and then returns to take charge of his company once again. So to clarify this relationship, Heihachi threw his 9-year-old son off a cliff, and about a decade later his son returned the favor by throwing Heihachi off the same cliff. So then 2 years after that, Heihachi throws his son into an active volcano. Family gatherings must be awkward. So what will happen to Heihachi's company? What will become of Kazuya and Jun's baby? What mysterious thing happened to Nina and Anna? Will we see more dinosaur boxing action? Stay tuned for Tekken 3.